We're only halfway through September, it's already spooky season for me. Hi folks, Harry here, and today I'm going to be sharing with you some of the horror books that I am planning on reading this lead up to Halloween, so September/October. I don't care about what the calendar says, as soon as it becomes September, it is autumn. Or fall, if you're an American. And Cyprus had its first bit of rain today. Oh my god, it rained here. I haven't seen rain in months, so it is now absolutely autumn. It's also cooling down a lot, so I'm wearing a jumper or a sweater if you're an American. I've got a lit scented candle that's just got all of the autumn vibes. I've got the orange on my fairy lights that you can't see very well. Oh my god, it is autumn and I'm so happy. Also, if you're thinking, Harry, why are you wearing a really boring jumper? Today is so grey outside, I'm just reflecting the weather right now. Anyway, enough of me rambling, let me get into the horror books that I'm planning on reading this lead up to Halloween. Some of these are going to be classic novels, some of these are going to be adult horror novels, some of them are going to be thrillers, and one of them is a graphic novel. So let's just get into it. The first book that I really want to get to is The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. The Haunting of Hill House is a Gothic horror novel released in 1959, and it was very recently adapted into a TV show directed by Mike Flanagan. I absolutely adore the TV show. The Haunting of Hill House is one of the best TV shows I've ever seen, and I've heard that it's very different from the original source material, so I don't really know much about what's going on in this book because I only watched the show. So I'm really curious to now read the source material, find out all of the differences between the book and the TV show, which is amazing. I really want you to watch that because it's so good. And I'm just so interested in this story. I've only ever read one Shirley Jackson work in my life, and that is the short story The Lottery, which is so unbelievably bleak. If you have ever read The Lottery, let me know in the comments down below and we can talk about it, because I don't think I've ever spoken about that book with anyone before because no one's ever read it. But if you have read it, please let me know. And I enjoyed the writing, and I'm really looking forward to getting into The Haunting of Hill House. Kind of bouncing off of Hill House, the next book that I want to read is The Turn of the Screw by Henry James. And you may see that I'm actually already a little bit into it and I've already annotated some of it. The reason why this is bouncing off of Hill House is that this was also directed into a TV show by Mike Flanagan, The Haunting of Bly Manor. And even though some people don't like it, I absolutely loved The Haunting of Bly Manor. And again, I wanted to read the source material, so that's exactly what I'm doing here. The writing in this is very dense, but I am interested in just reading what this story originated from. This next one's a little bit longer, and it is a classic, so I probably won't get to it, but I will try if I can, and that is Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. This is also a Gothic horror novel. If you can't tell, I love Gothic horror. It's my favourite subgenre of horror. And despite how famous this book is, I don't actually know much about it, so I'm looking forward to reading it. This next one's a little bit random, and I'm not going to say too much about it because I don't know too much about it, and it is this collection. It is Night Terrors, The Ghost Stories of E.F. Benson. I found this in a bookshop. I thought, ooh, this is long, but it's filled with short stories that I can read when I'm just kind of wanting to dip into a little bit of ghostly horror. And yeah, I don't really know what this is going to be like, but it'll be a fun experience. If you know me at all, you know that my favourite author of all time is Stephen King, but I'm currently reading Black House, and after I finish Black House, I have read every single Stephen King novel, which blows my mind. It's absolutely insane, but that doesn't stop me from rereading some of my favourites. So, Misery. Misery is my second favourite Stephen King novel of all time, and it feels really cold. It's got a cold vibe to it. It's so chilling, it's so scary, and I can't wait to give this a reread. The same also goes for The Shining. This is another one of my favourites. It's a classic, it's very spooky, very ghostly, and I would love to read this again. This next one I don't think I've ever seen anyone talk about, and that is The Book of the Baku by R.L. Boyle. This has like 17 ratings on Goodreads, so barely anyone knows what this book is, but I found it in the bookshop and it just sounded so incredible. The main reason why I picked this up though is because of the Baku. The Baku is a Japanese folklore creature that basically feeds on people's fears while they sleep, so it's like Pennywise mixed with Freddy Krueger. And it just sounds bloody interesting, so I'm gonna read it. I don't even know if this is horror or a thriller. I don't really know what genre this is at all, because I can't really find much information about it, but I'm gonna read it. This spooky season has to be the spooky season where I finally continue reading The Vampire Chronicles by Anne Rice. And I've read the first 2 books, and I want to read The Queen of the Damned, which is the 3rd book. I am absolutely obsessed with The Vampire Chronicles. Well, as much as I've read of it, I've read the first 2 books, and I absolutely loved the 2nd book. The Vampire Lestat is one of my favourite vampire books of all time. And I've heard that Queen of the Damned picks up right after The Vampire Lestat, so I can't wait to get into this. I've been wanting to read it for a really, really long time. I've had my hands on it for a really long time. I've owned it for ages, but I've just never got around to it. And I really want to get around to it this Halloween. Graphic novel time. This list has been very horror focused, and I wanted to choose something that's a little bit more lighthearted, and that is the graphic novel Pumpkinheads. I read this graphic novel last autumn, and it was so wholesome, so cheery, so fun. I just really want to read it again. So it's got spooky vibes, and it's set at Halloween, but it's not scary at all. And the artwork is stunning. It is absolutely beautiful. So, I'm gonna give this another read. And while we're talking about more light-hearted stuff, The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman is heavily overexposed in this lighting, but it's also a book that I really, really want to read. This book has been on my radar for a really, really long time, and it just feels so spooky, but also really wholesome. And oh my god, the first line of this book is one of the best first lines I've ever read in a book ever. There was a hand in the darkness, and it held a knife. So good! The last few books I'm going to talk about are all by one author that I've never read any books by, and that is James Herbert. James Herbert is a British horror author, and I'm so interested in his books. One of his most famous is, of course, The Rats, but one that I do not own is The Fog, and that probably is the most famous one. But I've got plenty of his books. I have The Rats and Lair, I have The Jonah, I also have Nobody True, and also Portent. I cannot wait to give this author a try because his works and his concepts absolutely fascinate me. Those are what I assume to be most of the horror books that I'm going to be reading in September/October. And you know, I've also just realised I've had a can of Dr. Pepper here the whole time and I just haven't even started it. I love Dr. Pepper. Dr. Pepper Justice. If you've read any of the books that I mentioned in this video, please let me know in the comments down below and we can discuss them, because a lot of the books that I've included on this list I don't know a single thing about, so let me know if you've read any of them. If you've enjoyed this video, please do give it a big fat thumbs up, and please consider subscribing for more bookish content from me. All of my social media links, so that's my Instagram, Twitter, Goodreads, Letterboxd, TikTok, all of that is in the description below, and I will see you next time with a new video. Goodbye.